Welcome to the Social Smarty Scoop, your weekly update for everything you need to know in the world of social media marketing. Let's dive on in. First up this week, massive announcement from Meta. So Meta is shutting down its fact-checking program in the US. Now, since 2016, independent fact-checkers, so third-party fact-checkers, have reviewed content to help filter out misinformation. But Meta is shutting down this process and replacing that system with something it calls community notes. So what are community notes? Well, community notes are like additions that you add to the post. They're added by selected users to give extra context or clarity, extra information about that post. So they basically explain or clarify the content. So you can have a look at a post, read through the information, but then also see the community notes attached to it. But two things that are really important here. To add a community note, users must meet certain criteria set out by Meta. So they must have some sort of history of constructive contributions. So not just anyone can add a note to a post. And the other thing is for a note to actually appear, so for the general public like us to see that community note, users with different viewpoints must agree on it. Now, Meta says that this is meant to prevent bias. So unlike fact checkers who literally base decisions on verified information, this system relies on user consensus, so a number of people to agree. And that makes it really easy for opinions to spread as facts or misinformation to slip through. Now, the other thing that Meta announced is that they are reversing their years-long approach of showing less political content. Now, this is wild. They're saying that users want more political content in their feeds. And so now we're going to start seeing it. Now, another thing they've said is that they are going to change restrictions on topics like gender, immigration. In the past, it used to be quite restrictive in these areas. But what they're saying now is that this actually could benefit some restricted accounts like advocacy groups, health educators, that sort of thing. But then the flip side of it is it kind of risks amplifying that really polarizing content. There's some really bigoted views out there, and allowing that as a bit of a free-for-all on Meta platforms, Facebook, Instagram, I think is a little bit, scary. If you are a Facebook or Instagram user, I can almost guarantee you are if you're listening to this podcast, you need to be aware. You are going to start seeing potentially a lot more political content, sensitive content, and you really need to be a little bit more discerning with what you share and what you sort of understand to be truth. Now, I'm going to pop a link in the show notes to the video. So Mark Zuckerberg made an announcement video. I'll also link to the Instagram one. So Adam Mosseri, head of Instagram, also made an announcement. So I'll pop the link to both of those videos in the show notes. So if you want to go and check it out for yourself, go and watch those videos. Next up this week, Instagram has been spotted recommending that you schedule a post for later rather than sharing it late at night. So if you are going to post a piece of content late at night, you may now get a note that pops up and says, hey, why don't you schedule this for later when more of your audience is online? I think that's really useful. Threads is working on the ability to add music to your posts. We love music over on Facebook and Instagram, so no surprises there. Instagram has added a fade option for the music you select when you're creating a reel. Now, I have needed this for a long time, but it's such a cool addition. It basically means you can add music to your reel and you can either fade it in, fade it out, or both, fade it in and fade it out, basically increasing the volume. So yeah, nice cool little addition to the editor there. YouTube is now allowing everyone to share shorts of up to 3 minutes long. So they were testing this and then rolling it out, and now all users can share 3-minute long shorts. Meta is testing the ability to publish eBay listings on Facebook Marketplace. Now, the test is only happening in 3 countries that I am aware of, so Germany, France, and the US. Now, this is all rolled out of the EU. So basically in the EU, there's a lot of criticism around Meta having basically the monopoly around, a lot of these platforms. And so Facebook's marketplace is seen as, being sort of the one place that everyone goes to sell their used products or their goods, that sort of thing. So this is basically Meta's way of saying to the EU, hey, look, we're not dominating this space. We're now going to allow eBay listings on our platform, showing that, it's basically diversifying that space. I don't know about that. It seems like an interesting way of approaching this problem they have with the EU, but yeah, interesting to see how that rolls out. eBay's not big here in New Zealand, so it's not going to have a big impact on me. And lastly this week, I have to touch on the US TikTok ban. Now, 10th of January was the date that TikTok appealed in front of the US Supreme Court. So they argued their case. The justices, they seemed likely to still uphold that law requiring ByteDance, who owns TikTok, to sell TikTok's US operations by the 19th of January. TikTok really argued for extending this date, just asking for a little bit more time. Basically, the justices just really seemed to double down on the fact that they, really worried about this data access by the Chinese government, that TikTok was really, a concern around that data access. Now, President-elect Donald Trump has also asked for more time to explore a political solution, but the Department of Justice is not on board with that. So at the moment, it still looks like if ByteDance doesn't sell, TikTok can be removed from the app stores in the US, meaning that there will be no new downloads, no updates, and eventually basically the app will be unusable. Now, the Supreme Court, though, hasn't made a final decision. So after hearing the case on the 10th of January, we don't actually have an outcome from that. So basically, I suspect that will obviously come pretty soon. It's now the weekend, obviously, in the US, so I suspect we won't hear until Monday. But the deadline of the 19th of January really is coming up fast, so it will be really interesting to see how this rolls out. If you are a TikTok user, you will have noticed that US creators are encouraging you to follow them on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, all the other platforms to stay up to date. Snapchat's another big one, so following your creators on Snapchat. It's just such a wild case to be following from here in New Zealand, where it doesn't feel so much like it's impacting on me, but also I know the small businesses over there that rely on TikTok, the creators that literally make their income from the TikTok creator programs. It's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out. There we have it. That is your update for the week ending the 12th of January, 2025. As always, if you would like to continue the conversation, come and find me all over social media at socialsmarty.co. If you have a minute to leave me a rating or a review wherever you're listening to this podcast, that would be super helpful. It really helps me reach new listeners. Until next week, stay social.